Now, there's going to be a lot of resistance when it comes to your ego, and that is because if there's one thing the ego cannot stand is change. So like I mentioned before, when you're trying to make like behavioral changes, your ego is not going to like that. You're shaking the boat, man. You're getting all up in its business. And it likes to be comfortable. It likes to know what's going on, and it can do this by using the past as a way of sort of like, I don't know, seeing into the future, understanding how to approach things that are happening now based on the past. But we don't want to live in the past. We want to live in the now. So this is going to be frightening to your ego's core, to the core, man. Now, what is the ego? The ego, I think, like if you had asked me, like, I don't know, a week ago or 2 weeks ago what I thought ego was, I would say it's like your confidence. It's the way you hold yourself. It's your, I don't know, the basis of you. But becoming aware of your ego is actually what gives you confidence. Your ego, if you just like let your ego run its course, that's not confidence. That is not coming from a heart-centered place. You are letting your ego drive the bus, per se. And we don't want that. Don't we want to make choices for ourselves? Don't we want to like be able to listen to our thoughts and then decide what we want to do next rather than have somebody dictate to us what we should be doing? And that's what your ego is doing. You're not making those choices. I mean, you are making those choices, but you're not making those choices because of your heart. You're making them because your ego is driving the bus. The ego, is how you see yourself. So these are going to be the part of your mind that identifies with, your traits, your beliefs, and your habits. So that's why I think a lot of people mix up the ego with confidence and with personality. I don't really know how. I think like once I started really getting into understanding who I was as a person and what life is and the meaning of it all, and understanding my attachment styles and understanding, my inner childhood wounds and the things that I learned from the very beginning, I'm realizing I don't even really know if personality is a thing. I think that everything that might be attached to this word personality are just responses to lived or past lived experiences. Do I have a personality? I think maybe by that definition I do, but I don't even know if I really understand what that means. I don't even think that's a real thing. So your ego is your unconscious part of your mind until you become conscious of it. So it's just been living its life, doing its thing without you even noticing it. So it's this sort of unconscious part. And when you're a kid, you live sort of in an egocentric state. And what that means is everything that happens revolves around you. You hit a certain age where you can think more abstractly, but when you're a kid, you're very egocentric. And so anything that happens to you because of you. And I mean, maybe if you had like a really good childhood, this wouldn't be that big of a deal because maybe you learned how to be in a really healthy way. Maybe you had really good parents or guardians that taught you really healthy ways of responding to life and stuff like that. Coping mechanisms, how to communicate, etc. But most of the time when you're a kid, when like bad things happen to you, you think that they happened to you because of you. And so you take this very personally, and so does your ego. I'm so sorry about Junie, guys. Now, I mentioned before, your ego is there to protect you from your reality. So that's why it writes all these stories. That's why it tucks things away, is because it wants to keep like the things that are going to protect you up front, and then hide the things that are true back there somewhere. And it creates an identity for you to be able to cope with all of these kind of difficult things that we go through in life, like feeling confused, feeling lost, feeling like disconnected from people and reality. And you know, if you lose someone you love, or you lose the love from somebody, all of these experiences are the foundation of your ego. That's what it's there for, is to protect you from these experiences. And it's kind of ironic because I don't know, I always find human beings, like, we're such interesting creatures because we're the only ones that have egos. Like, other animals don't have them. And I just think it's so funny that we have these things in our mental processes that are there to protect us, but in reality, they're not really protecting us. They're kind of like getting in the way of us doing what we're here to do, what we want to do, who we want to be. It's going to strengthen, the ego is going to do whatever it can to strengthen that part of your identity, because all the ego really wants, all we really want as human beings, is to feel loved. And from a young age, that has been the goal. And our ego sees that as its goal, and it's going to do whatever it takes to get that. And that might be writing stories that promote you to act in one way based on these concepts of your identity. Because we just it wants to ensure your ability to receive love, whatever is available. And that's why I think it's interesting. Like, I've had a lot of toxic relationships, and obviously I partook in those, so I'm not like, that's my responsibility. But I think a lot of it is because I let my ego drive the bus. And if I could just become aware of my ego, maybe I could, you know, comfort my ego and be like, hey, I know that we had some hard stuff happen to us, and maybe we don't know how to have healthy stuff, but we could have good things instead of having bad things to consistently support that we are unlovable. Because that's like one of my core childhood wounds, is that I am unlovable, and my ego will do almost anything to find evidence that supports that I am unlovable. And I watch my ego do that on the daily. So, and that's why this work is so great, because I think really getting to know your ego is going to allow you to become more aware of when it pops in and out. And you can be like, hey, I see you, you know. As we age, we're taught unconsciously values that become part of our identity, such as our intelligence, how smart we are, or how smart we think we are based on the perception of our experiences. I know growing up, I thought I was stupid, and that still kind of is in my little ego backpack too, and I'm trying to unpack that a little bit, because I know I'm not stupid, but my ego likes to find evidence to support that I am, and I help. Because I don't listen to myself, I listen to my ego, and so I do things that set me up for failure. Other things are going to be like achievement, success, your preferred emotional states. So whatever those preferred emotional states that have allowed you to receive love, those are going to be the emotional states that your ego is going to cling to. So I don't have any specific examples. Maybe like if you're a super chipper, happy, people pleaser kind of person like I am, not all the time, by the way. I have my little shadow self as well. I feel like I get more love that way than I would if I were shy and quiet and maybe kind of like negative, Nancy. Relationships, These are going to be values that we're taught. We're taught these unconscious values. Like we should have lots, we should have what role we should play in our relationships, and then other people. And so our greatest need, like I said, is to receive love. So we're going to identify with any of these values that allows us to receive more love, we are going to identify with. So it's kind of like your ego has data that supports whether this works or this works. And if this worked, even if it's unsavory, even if it's negative, your ego is going to say, hey, you should do this because this works, this gets you love, or what you define as love, which can also be something you should look at, because our egos like to tell us when something is love when maybe it's not, because we were taught that as children. If you were taught an unhealthy love, you're still going to think that's love. And so your ego is going to still try to seek out that form of love in whatever way possible by identifying with these values. Now, like I said, it's going to do anything to protect this idea of ourselves, and it's going to accept anything that confirms this idea of who you are, your identity. Any concepts that are related to this identity, anything that confirms that says, yep, this is who you are, whether positive or negative, it is going to accept that. And anything that goes against your ego, goes against your identity, goes against these concepts that you have associated with your identity, it is going to become extremely defensive and deny all of that. And that is usually when we project onto others. So like if someone attacks you verbally or emotionally and makes you question who you are, your little ego is going to come out and say, hey, no, I'm great. You suck. Not me. You. You're a terrible person. You're greedy. Not me. Because any of those like shadow self things that we've been hiding, our ego has from us, those can't be true. We can't have a duality within ourselves. I'm being sarcastic. We can totally have a duality. We are a duality. We can feel a negative way and a positive way about something. We can be good. We can be bad. I don't like labels. That's why I think doing this ego work is so important, because when you realize that you're just you. There are things that maybe that you're not particularly proud of. You may do some things that you are really proud of. That doesn't mean you're a bad person. That just means you're a flipping person. And that is totally valid, and that's totally normal. And I feel like when you become aware of this concept, things don't feel so heavy. It feels like, I'm going to use this metaphor again, it feels like you got a bunch of stuff taken out of your backpack and you can like walk around a little bit more lighter with your shoulders stop hurting, and you can sleep better, and like you feel like a sense of relief. And I think that's why this ego work is so important.